Joining us now to talk more about the opioid crisis, former San Diego police officer Mark Powell. Mark, thank you so much for coming back to Rush Hour. What can we realistically do to combat this crisis when it really seems to be increasingly harder and harder to contain?
Well, one of the first things we can do is seal the border, because the drugs are pouring through the border. And with a porous border like we have, it makes it very challenging for law enforcement. When you're diverting a lot of the resources handling the asylum seekers, it creates gaps in the border where drugs can be brought in. But the real problem that we're seeing with fentanyl, and why all of a sudden fentanyl, Nichole, why is it all of a sudden showing up on the streets, is because it's very inexpensive to make. It's not like heroin, and it's not like cocaine. Heroin, where you'll need a poppy. Cocaine, you need the cocoa leaf. It's actually like agriculture. You have to grow it. Fentanyl is produced in a laboratory. So when you hear about these record drug busts, and we do celebrate law enforcement for making these record drug busts, you have to think, why would somebody take the risk of sending over that much drugs in one shipment? It's because if they do lose it, it's not that big a deal.
I want to dig into that a little bit more, but I mean, we just heard in Brooks' piece, this drug is really unlike anything we've ever seen. It's everywhere. Have we lost the war on fentanyl, as hard as that is to say?
Well, I don't think we've lost the war, but we're losing the war. The only way to win this war is to reduce the demand and increase education, fentanyl awareness programs. It's similar to when we found out that cigarettes were bad for you. That was a 30-year campaign for people to stop smoking. So there is no short-term solution. There is no one single solution, but one of it involves a serious drug awareness campaign starting in the elementary schools and going all the way up, because we can't control the number of drugs, we can't control the price of drugs, and we can't control how easy it is to get drugs.
Right.
But we can control the social aspect.
Right. That's like the DARE program, and there was questions on how successful that was. Mark, I want to go back to something you said. We know the majority of fentanyl in the U.S. comes over the Mexico border. We know the cartels are obviously trying to make money here. It's so cheap to produce. But,
Yes.
That's tough to do if your product kills your customers. So what is the real motivation here?
Well, initially, like you heard in the previous segment, that more people were overdosing from fentanyl back a year ago, and now you see less overdoses. So obviously, you're going to modify how you're producing fentanyl. But the problem is, it's easily snuck into the country because it's in a pill form. And it's in the border town where I live in San Diego, they're bringing it over in boats because there's no no fence in the ocean, and they'll just take their boats. They'll have backpacks full of drugs, and they'll actually just beach the boats and leave them there and run up the sand. And they're in the country with the drugs. They're smuggling them all sorts of different ways, cars. They're even smuggling them inside their bodies and walking across the border so they're not detected.
Yeah, it's certainly truly a crisis, and certainly no easy answers here. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nichole.